I want to talk about why this number is a really good number. Now, some of you might have been thinking, gee, I wish it would have been 8.5 since the cost of the building is 8.5 million. Wouldn't it have been cool if it was 8.5 million instead of 5.8 million and change? And I want to tell you why I think 5.8 is actually better. And here's why. 6 reasons. 1, when was the last time any of you, with sincerity, prayed, God, give me this day the food I need for this day? Probably it's been a long time, because you can just drive to Walmart and get it. If 8.5 million had been committed, I don't think we would have prayed very much post the commitment. But because it's 5.8 and there's still a gap, and obviously we're going to move ahead pending your approval, but this is going to keep us on our knees. Is there anything wrong with the church being on its knees? And I think this is a really good thing, honestly. As soon as I saw that number, started reflecting on it and went to the Lord about it, this is a really good thing because it will keep us praying. Second reason I think this is a better number. If the full amount of money had come in, we would have probably been more tempted to say, yeah, sure, we can do that. Yeah, sure, we can buy that. Sure, we can do that, whatever. This will make us better stewards of every dollar we spend. We always try to be really good stewards, but we're going to be even better stewards. We're going to ask hard questions about every dollar that we spend, because every dollar that we spend is very, very important for the sake of the kingdom. And so that's the second reason. I think it's a great number. Third reason is that it keeps all of us in a place of commitment and surrender. If we had raised 8.5 or 8.7 or $9 million, you might be thinking, well, they don't really need my gift, and I'll be fine, and that sort of thing. We do need your gifts. We need all of us to stay fully engaged. Really, in many ways, the campaign is just beginning. We're just starting this 3-year process of living in surrender with our finances, and that's a good thing, because this is going to keep us in that place of surrender. Fourth reason is it gives us a lot of chances over the next 3 years to continue to invite new people into this process, into this campaign. Our consultant met with us and he said, if you simply do 2 things over the next 3 years, if you simply invite people to continue to join who are new people and just continue to say thank you, as we have tried to do and will continue to do, he said, I'm convinced you'll have more than $6 million in commitment when it's all said and done after 3 years. So this gives new people a chance to join, and we don't have to say to people who come to us next summer, see that building going up out there, we don't need any more money because it's already paid for. We still do. And so it's a chance for more people to experience the privilege of going before God and saying, I lay myself before me, what would you have me do for my church that I'm now a part of, who are not here yet? Fifth reason, remember, this is a process. This whole thing that we're doing is a process. It's not a product. We're not after a building. We're after our hearts and our church becoming more fully surrendered to Jesus Christ than they ever have been before. And our church to be more united than it's ever been before. So being in a place of continued dependence for the next 3 years when we go through this is going to put the emphasis on that process that we're going to have to pull together for the next 3 years. And by God's grace, this whole thing is going to happen. I think that's exciting. And the sixth and final reason why it's a good number, and then this is a lead into Bill. Bill's going to come and talk about it. But if you were we did desserts, we did a congregational meeting, we did a number of things. We've talked about these 2 things. So the Bible in the book of Proverbs talks a lot about, with many counselors there is wisdom. And so we sought a lot of counsel on the building process. And in church world, we've told you this before, but in church world, there are 2 numbers that we've been trying to kind of aim for. And that is that we want to, when we get to the end of this whole 3-year process and the campaign's over and the final amount of debt that we've had to take on to build this building, 2 numbers are very important. That's not a bad thing, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But 2 numbers are important about reasonable debt to go ahead with expansion. One is that your loan amount that you have a mortgage for should not be more than 10 to 15% of your annual budget. So the amount of money that you spend, 10 to 15%, is a very good number. Some churches will go as high as 30. That's risky. We've been as high as 19 when we first moved here. We aimed for about 10. and in this campaign, and you're going to hear Bill talk about that's been something that we'll be able to achieve. And then the second number is when you end up with your final amount of money that you use in a loan to move ahead with construction, that number that you borrow should be somewhere between 1 and 2 times your annual budget. And we'll be right there. We'll be at the low end of that spread. And so that's a really good number as well. So with that, Bill's going to tell you how this is all going to work and present the motion for us to move ahead and to vote on.